Welcome to the April 4th, 2024 Northampton City Council meeting. I'm Alex Jarrett. I'm City Council President. I'll be presiding along with Vice President Rachel Maori. And this meeting and all participating in person and on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. I now call the City Council to order. Laura, would you take the roll, please?
Certainly. Councillor Dubbs.
Here.
Councillor Elkins.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Labarge.
Here.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Moulton.
Here.
Councillor Clemmer.
Here.
Councillor Perry.
Here.
And Councillor Rothenberg.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight's highlights include a resolution to adopt the capital improvement program and 8 financial orders to begin implementing it, an order to adopt the water and sewer rates for the next fiscal year, an order to modify the council rules to allow for a recess and then resume on Zoom only, and an order to cancel our April 18th meeting. A resolution in support of the city's Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan, and a resolution to support paint stewardship legislation. So a reminder that beginning May 2nd, the council will start at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to try to get the word out as best we can about that new time. Next, we have some announcements of public hearings. Announcement of public hearing on 24.023 National Grid poll petition for Tyler Court. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, the Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. I'm realizing that we can do that. We may have to do something else first because we'll be starting at 6:30. I imagine it might be too late to change that. So we'll stick with that. In council chambers on National Grid's petition to install a single pole for service to 29 Tyler Court. Instructions for accessing the hearing remotely may be found on the May 2nd, 2024 City Council agenda, to be posted on northamptonma.gov no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting, and the City Council will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. There will also be a public hearing on 24.029, a National Grid Verizon poll petition for Pilgrim Drive. And similarly, this will be a public hearing on Thursday, May 2nd at 7:05 p.m. Same location, same Zoom access, and we will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon.
You'll have to bring your ukulele that night in case there's pauses.
Right, in case we have to wait. So next is public comment. So if you wish to make a public comment, you can sign up on the sheet at the podium. If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. And the raise hand feature is in the bottom menu bar by reactions. If you're having trouble raising your virtual hand, you can turn on your video and physically raise your hand. You can also submit a written public comment. You can email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov, and it will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. And we'll alternate between people in the room and people on Zoom. And before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. We limit comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, I'll ask you to finish your sentence. We don't respond during public comment. So while your comments should be directed to us, we won't respond. And our rules also state that councilors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. Your protected speech is a constitutional right and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect for all, and with recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. You can speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda. Finally, this meeting can also be watched on Comcast Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel. We'll start with, in the room, Peter Kakos. Welcome. And your name and city or town, please.
Thank you. Peter Kakos, Ward 4, 220 Rocky Hill Road, Florence. As the counselors were coming in tonight, one of them asked me, "Are you here to give us more to do?" And I said, "Not unless you want something." I don't think so. You all are very busy, and I appreciate what you do for our city as public servants. So this comes as a note of gratitude. Kudos to Northampton City Council for passing 2 resolutions on February 27. One condemning every and all expressions of ethnic and religious hatred, another calling for an immediate release of hostages and political prisoners on both sides, suspending unrestricted military aid to Israel, and allowing desperately needed aid to resume unhindered. Your courageous stand now makes us the 4th city in the Commonwealth to do so, and the 1st in Western Mass, alongside 8 other major cities nationally. We applaud your condemnation of imminent deaths on a massive scale throughout Gaza due to malnutrition, scarcity of clean water, medicines and equipment of every kind, hospital and staff safety always at risk. To illustrate, acceptable estimates are that at least 1,100 children have undergone amputations with no anesthesia. Can you imagine being bedside, holding your 13-year-old granddaughter's helpless hand, your other hand bracing the sidebar to prevent you from passing out? For over a month, many council members diligently worked for the best language to convey their compassion for both grieving parties, have listened to and read hundreds of comments of various sincere persuasions. At an emotionally charged February 15th session in city chambers, 2 students silently held a banner they created from a bedsheet with a question as everlasting as time, quoting Genesis. In this story, God confronts Adam's son Cain, who, in a fit of jealousy, stabbed to death his brother Abel.
That was time. If you could finish your
I
sentence.
will, thank you. Echoing down the ages is a divine question fraught with meaning. What have you done? The blood of your brother cries out to me from the earth. And just one more sentence. Permit me to conclude by blessing and honoring Aaron Bushnell of the United States Air Force of Orleans, Massachusetts, who on February 25th at the entrance to the Israeli embassy in Washington burned himself alive for his global sisters and brothers' sake, whose last words through the shooting flames cries out, "Free Palestine." Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Amy Sugahara. Welcome, Amy. Your name and city or town, please.
Hi, good evening. My name's Amy Sugihara, and I live on Morningside Drive in Florence, Ward 7. Sorry, this is a hard one to follow, the last speaker. Thank you for saying all that. So, changing gears. I'm here to support the resolution that you will be speaking on later. It's called the Resolution in Support of Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan in Northampton. Northampton, I believe, adopted it in 2020. And so I really appreciate that it is coming back to the forefront and that the City Council is considering this resolution in support of it and putting the transition plan in the forefront for work to be done. Our democracy, as we all know, is a work in progress and far from perfect. Our democracy has not supported various groups of people at different times. And collectively, I believe we get better and better, and we learn, sometimes way too slowly, but we do learn and we do better. And I think this is one of the ways that we, the city of Northampton, can do better. And so I really appreciate your consideration on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to announcements from councilors and the mayor. Councilor Perry.
Well, I will go. Coming up this weekend, again, is the Power of Truth Arts and Education Festival at Bombix on April 5th and 6th. Also coming up is going to be the Kids Best Fest, which has been a staple in my family. It's a free week-long movie festival during vacation, and I just might try and sleep over this time because a couple of the movies are awesome. There's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Holes is a favorite in our family. So go out and enjoy not only some movies, but also some education this weekend.
Thank you. Councilor Clemmer.
The Cancer Connection bed-in is back. It's 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, April 5th, at Greenfield Savings Bank on King Street. And I was invited to speak. I'll be there at 1:30 tomorrow.
Thank you. Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. I belong to the Rotary Club in Northampton for several years. And we're back again. The Northampton Rotary Club will be conducting the Day of Service tree planting event again. As part of a Rotary International focus on protecting the environment, the Northampton Rotary Club is working with the Northampton's Department of Public Works, the Urban Forestry Commission, the nonprofit Tree Northampton, and the Ice Pond Association to organize a tree planting event on Ice Pond Drive from 9 a.m. to 12 noon on Saturday, April 20th, 2024, with April 21st as a rain day. You don't need to be in Rotary to volunteer. The Rotary Day of Service isn't just for Rotarians. Anyone interested in volunteer to help plant trees, please contact our Day of Service Chair, Barbara Devlin, at bdevlinmn@gmail.com. And believe me, we are very, very strong, very strong. And this is a special event for us Rotarians in Northampton and throughout. You are looking at a huge number of Rotarians throughout our country. Anyways, we have already done Ryan Road School, we have done Leeds School, we also have planted at Jackson Street School. We have taken care of Greenleaf on our ward and other side streets. It's amazing how many people help us with volunteering. So please remember, get a hold of Barbara Devlin to volunteer at the Ice Pond. And their organization also is helping us out. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome.
Councilor Dubs.
Thank you. I made this announcement a few weeks ago, but it was like 10:30 at night when I made it, so I thought maybe I'd just mention it one more time. So tomorrow at the Northampton Center for the Arts, which is 33 Holly Street, there's going to be a screening of the film Go On, Be Brave, which is sponsored by All Out Adventures and Northampton Disability Commission. This is a story about an incredible true story of the first person with ALS to complete a marathon in all 50 states. And given the terminal diagnosis of ALS at only 33 years old, Andrea Lytle Pete set a goal that should have been impossible. The film screening is at 6 o'clock p.m. The doors open at 5:15 for food and mingling. and then there'll be also more discussion and mingling after the film screening. So if you want to buy tickets, they are available at bit.ly/bebrave0405. And on the website, you can also find out about the accessibility information, and it's an accessible event. The Northampton Center for the Arts is a very accessible place, so it's pretty cool.
Thank you. Other announcements? Mayor.
Evening, everybody. I just want to let everyone know, so we're closing out National Public Health Week. There have been, and through tomorrow there will be, collection boxes for food. So the theme this year that the Department of Health and Human Services is exploring or is focusing on is food insecurity, especially since the pandemic, where we've seen a huge increase in food insecurity. So there's a food drive that they've been doing to support the Northampton Survival Center, and there are collection boxes throughout the city. So there are boxes in City Hall on both floors, in the municipal building, this one, and also Memorial Hall, down at the Department of Health and Human Services at 1 Roundhouse Plaza, at the fire department on 26 Carlin Drive, in the police department, and at the senior center, and in both libraries, Forbes Library and Lilly Library. So if you can find some canned goods, then please, bring them by tomorrow, close of business, and put those in those collection boxes. Thank you. Also, I want to announce that we are having 2 more hub meetings. We had a fabulous meeting about the Northampton Resilience Hub at Edwards Church last week. That was with Jones Whitsitt Architects and Community Action Pioneer Valley. There's a great PowerPoint presentation that Jones Whitsitt did, which can be found at northamptoncommunityresilienchub.org. You can also see a really cool 3D rendering and photos, and it was a fabulous meeting, great turnout. We got to sort of introduce the building to some people for the very first time, and they got to get kind of a virtual look inside. We also had another great meeting today with some of the folks who live right next door. And on May 1st, there will be another meeting, and this one is going to be an engaging and educational interactive presentation that will explore Northampton's present and emerging climate and health vulnerabilities, and talk about how the hub will help not just the vulnerable populations that will be served in part of the hub, but how it will help the entire community face all of those challenges. So that's May 1st at Edwards Church, and then there'll be another community forum on June 5th. So I want everyone mark your calendars for that. And what time? That's such a great question. Alan, do you know what time?
I'm sorry.
Hub meeting?
I think I'll look right now, sorry.
What time was the one last? 6?
I want to say 6, but
Okay.
let me look, I have it.
Okay, we're working on it. You'll never could guess, but outdoor dining is starting soon. April 17th is when outdoor dining gets set up, so that's when the blocks will be dropped, and then businesses can start setting up their outdoor dining. So here's hoping we have wonderful weather to get that going. And I think
6 to 7:30 p.m.
6 to 7:30 p.m. is when the hub meetings will be at Edwards Church. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Any committee chairs who want to share their meetings possibly for the next month if we do end up canceling? Yep.
So legislative matters, we're expecting to have something referred to us today, right? Yes. And then we also have the zoning legislation. So here's what we've done. 6:30 on April 11th to take up the matter that we expect to be referred today. I suppose if we all decide not to do that, we won't do that, but we're assuming that will happen. And then 7 o'clock, we'll begin the joint planning board legislative matters meeting on the zoning. So that's all on the agenda. That's all that's on tap for April for legislative matters.
Thanks. Okay, any others? Yeah, Councilor Clemmer.
Next Thursday, April 11th, from 4:30 to 6, the Committee of City Services and Community Resources are holding a joint meeting with Deputy Commissioner Michelle Ferry from Division of Community Care. She'll be speaking. They will be giving an update since they last spoke at City Services about 6 months ago, general experience of the community care response team, types of requests for services that the DCC has received and challenges and obstacles, as well as successes and accomplishments. Deputy Commissioner Farry will talk about the findings of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership.
Thank you.
It'll be hybrid, too, in council chambers.
What was the date and time?
April 11th, 4:30 till 6:30, till 6.
Thank you. Councilor Moulton.
In addition to that joint meeting with Community Resources, City Services will hold a meeting on its own the following week, be either April 16th or 17th, to take up various appointments and reappointments, most of which will be referred tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? All right, seeing none, we can move on. So normally we would do the consent agenda next, but because we have a resolution that the capital improvement program resolution should be adopted before we vote on the 8 financial orders that are in the consent agenda, I would like us to take up that resolution now. So this is 24.031, a resolution to adopt the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2025 to 29, and this is in second reading. So we just got a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion to approve?
A motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Labarge. So it's now on the floor for discussion. And seeing Councilor Rothenberg.
I think that this is coming too soon in our budgeting process. I think when I look at the deadlines that are set for the various pieces of the way we do our budgeting, this is one of the last ones, and I think it's a good reason for that. I think there's a good reason that the school is the earliest deadline. And I know that we've all been hearing a lot from our community about the schools and how much concern there is about whether or not we're doing enough to prioritize them. And I also know that they have their vote coming up in just 1 week. And I feel strongly that it would be best for us to not take any action on budgetary matters until they complete their process in 1 week. I also feel, looking at the SIP, that there's more that we could do to workshop it. I think that the sidewalk issues is something that we all plan to look into, or at least some of us plan to look into, and the mayor was very kind, and Donna, to make time to meet with us today to look into that further, and we wanted to fit that in before today's vote, but due to weather and other reasons, we had to wait. But I'm sure that we're all willing to reschedule that soon and to try to get this in all to a vote soon. But I think we could look a little bit closer at this final look at the SIP in terms of the context of the moment we are in right now. What are communities saying to us right now? What our resources are right now? And also give ourselves a chance to pass that resolution about accessibility, which really is to help us see everything that we're doing through the lens of that ADA transition plan. I think we should apply that to this final look at the SIP. So for all those reasons, I think it's too soon. And I believe that Councilor Dubs and I together are making a joint charter objection to move this to the next.
Could we have?
Yes, we're not making it right now.
Okay.
But we wanted to let you know. We think it's good to have more discussion tonight and to use all the time for discussion that we can. But this will result ultimately at the end of the discussion in a joint charter objection to put this to the next regular meeting, which we think would be fine for it to be in May and appropriate, but we're willing to talk about other rescheduling if we understand that other people want to see it in sooner. Thank you.
Councilor Elkins.
I believe that I know that this is the the standard manner in which the CIP has been passed for many years, including the previous 2 years of my years on council. It is not something that's generated entirely starting in October. It is an ongoing, rolling, 5-year big picture look at our needs as a city. The other thing is capital improvement projects are almost all exclusively one-time funds, one-time projects. And therefore, there is nothing that school committee is going to be doing that we can take money from the CIP and give to schools for their recurring expenses. That's fiscally irresponsible and not appropriate. The other thing I would say is that there's no need to wait, and I really would encourage you to refrain from that charter objection. We've had adequate time to look at the CIP. It is, as I said, the product of a rolling 5-year plan that's adopted every year and moves forward in time. The questions of accessibility, and there's no need to wait for the resolution. That resolution reiterates policies and legal requirements that we already meet. Anytime we do sidewalks, we have to make them ADA accessible, and that's part of the expense of doing it. That's part of the plan. And in fact, that's true of any capital improvement project that we pass and have to do. That's baked into the cake in terms of complying with ADA law. So I think the resolution is great. I look forward to being able to support that. But the CIP doesn't need to and should not wait. The other thing is that some of the expenses on the CIP are now. We don't have the luxury, and especially the financial orders that are before us now on the consent agenda, those are the ones that are reflected by what needs to start happening now, contracts that we have in place, people that need to be paid, work that needs to begin. So I very much think it would be out of order to issue a charter, to do a charter objection, simply to ask for more time to do what we need to do anyway and must do anyway. So I'm supportive of the CIP and the plan. I think it's well put together. I appreciate Charlie Nardi, the mayor, working on that plan, all of the department heads who work incredibly hard to put together their presentations and their packages, all of which are available to us at meetings, all of which are in the budget, in the project, the resolution plan, and is also worked through by the CIP Advisory Committee, which I've served on, been one of the most illuminating and educational parts of my work here, with a member of the school committee and a member of the planning board, and there's always 2 other members of the community, sort of at large, who are well versed in the city and the needs. So there's really no reason to wait. And if a charter objection is lodged today, I really urge Council President that we reschedule the meeting at the earliest possible time. But please don't. Please don't. Thank you.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. Being a city councilor for so many years, I cannot tell you how tirelessly that the members of CIP work. It's not something that's just done overnight. It's done for a 5-year plan here, a 5-year plan. They give up a lot of their time, and they work tirelessly with other departments of the needs that they need. It's not something that's happening overnight. And I have to say that it's definitely a 5-year plan, and it's a #1 project. Without that project, a lot of things would not be happening. A lot of things that actually help people with disabilities, our fire department, the DPW, unbelievable. all the work that's involved. And I have to agree with Councilor Elkins. This is something that needs to be approved, not something to even deal with the charter. Whatever, okay? It has nothing to do with that involvement. So please understand why this is important. Believe me, a lot of work has been done with this. The mayor, right down the line, people well-educated who also volunteered their time. A 5-year plan, not overnight. It took a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Councilor Rothenberg. I'm curious as to why you didn't suggest a couple weeks ago for a referral to finance to do more in-depth work, or referral to another committee, so we could have done that work over the last 2 weeks.
I guess I would say I'm equally surprised as to why we just put it into consent.
But why didn't you propose that? I certainly would have supported it.
I don't have a problem with us workshopping this as a full council. I don't think it needs to be workshopped in that particular committee. I think we should have the discussion, and we should have the discussion at an appropriate time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Perry.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what Councilor Elkins and Councilor Labarge said. There's been a lot of work put in here, and I think I have one thing to say, and I think maybe some of the newer councilors don't understand that adopting this resolution does not mean that we are authorizing spending any funding. There will be chances for everyone to discuss. If there's something that stands out for you, you could discuss that. But there are things before us that do need to happen, and wasting the city's time, wasting our constituents' time, feels very frustrating to me. That's all I have to say.
Councilor Moulton.
Thank you. Yeah, I too am perplexed by the call to postpone this for any further time. The plan was released on February 29th. We've had 5 weeks to review it. We had a lengthy hearing 2 weeks ago, which I believe every single department head in the city was here or was available to us to question. To tie this to a vote by the school committee next Thursday on its fiscal year 25 operating budget is an entirely wrong comparison. The capital improvement plan for the city, and as Councilor Perry said, this is only approving the rough outline for it. All of the expenditures will come back to us eventually for us to consider individually. But to approve a capital improvement program, which, as Councilor Elkins said, is largely one-time expenses, and to compare that to an operating budget is a false equivalency. And the action on the capital improvement program will have no effect on the resources that are available for the school department or any other city department for the operating budget for FY25. So there's no reason to wait because of a vote in 1 week by the school committee. And I agree with Councilor Elkins on the resolution, the other resolution that we're taking up tonight on the 88 plan. That plan has been in place for 4 years, almost 4 years. And I believe that it is helping to guide improvements that we make through the capital funding. I think it's great to bring it back to the forefront and to remind us that we should be looking at capital improvements through this lens. But that plan is in place. So I would also urge Councilor Rothenberg not to make a charter objection. There's no purpose to it, and if a charter objection is lodged, I would urge Council President Jarrett to call us back here on Tuesday. I think would be the earliest that we could. Thank you.
Thank you. So the resolution that's on the floor right now is aspirational. It sets the plan. The mayor and us we are not bound to follow it. It is a resolution. We can amend it, but all that amends the plan. It amends the aspirational plan that lays out the next 5 years. So one option would be to pass the resolution, and if there are specific items that we'll be addressing in the consent agenda, those could be brought out. We can have further discussion on that, of course, tonight. A specific one could be, we could even vote to delay it. It wouldn't have to be a charter objection if there was, if we felt like there wasn't an urgent need for it to pass in the next X number of weeks. We could have debate on that. And so rather than delay the entire process and the every single item in of the 8 orders that are before us tonight, we could have a discussion about individual ones and the specific, and if there are specific concerns about those, because it's those financial orders that are actually engaging the moving the money. The resolution does not move anything. Councilor Elkins.
Council President, I would like to call the question. This requires a second on the motion and a 2/3 vote of voting members to cut off debate and vote on the question.
Councilor Elkins has called the question. Is there a second?
Second.
Pardon me, point of information. I don't understand that procedure as a new counselor.
Yeah, absolutely. So calling the question ends debate on a particular issue, and if voted, if passed, we would no longer discuss it. It would go right to a vote.
Thanks. And so we would vote on her calling the question?
We will now vote on calling the question. The motion.
And a majority would carry it?
2/3.
Is that right?
2/3. So motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Moulton. There's no debate on calling the question. Laura, roll call, please, on ending debate.
But point of information.
Councilor Dobbs.
Pardon me, Laura.
I believe a point of order.
Point of order, thank you.
Is forgetting the term, but go ahead with your point of order.
The way that you described that, the vote happens immediately, and so I think it's necessary for the charter objection to be lodged, as it has to be made before the vote. So I think this is that time.
You could do that right after this passes.
Okay.
Because that would be before the vote. You can't lodge a charter objection on this vote that we're having.
Right. Great.
That being said, Laura, roll call, please, on ending debate.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes? Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
No.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
And Councilor Rothenberg.
No.
So that carries by 7-2? Is that correct?
Yes. Correct.
So we will now take a vote on the resolution and second reading.
And I lodge a charter objection, and I would like to confirm that Councilor Dubs is joining me.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
I believe if the vote, if the question has been called, then the vote happens immediately. Debate has cut off. Charter objection, if it were to be lodged, needed to happen during debate.
It did happen. I preserved my rights. I made the charter objection at that time. And play the video back.
Let's just figure out Councilor Elkins' point of order. I'm going to go to the charter. Does anyone remember what section charter objection is in?
It's in legislative matter, ordinances and other measures. Section 29C.
29C.
Here it is.
Okay.
I'd also note that, point of order, if I may,
Yep.
that charter objections may be raised on the first occasion that a question of adoption of a measure is put to the city council. This is second reading.
But we don't vote at the first reading any longer. So, a charter objection shall have privilege over all motions, but must be raised prior to or at the call for a vote by the presiding officer, and all debates shall cease. I believe that to be, that I was just about to call the vote. I believe that to be in order. Let's see. But I'm going to take a recess, and I'm going to try to reach the city solicitor for his opinion on that, on your point of order.
What time do you want to start?
7, let's do 7:50 in 7 minutes. Welcome back. We are taking up the resolution to pass the capital improvement, to adopt the capital improvement program. It is now time to call for the vote.
Charter objection.
Charter objection has been raised. All debate shall cease. We shall move to the consent agenda.
Sorry, my microphone was off. I'd like to confirm whether or not Councillor Dubs is joining me in the charter objection.
I agree that it would be good to have more time to discuss this. I don't think that we're asking for a long time for there to wait until I think we're just asking for this out of respect for the school committee, all the students and teachers and staff.
So I'm sorry. There's
I'm
no
sorry.
debate.
I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was.
Yeah, you either raise it or you don't.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Then yes, I'm going to also raise a charter objection.
Okay, charter objection has been raised. This will be taken up at our next regular meeting. We will move on to the consent agenda. I will read the consent agenda, and if there are any removals, we will take those up individually. The minutes of the February 27th special city council meeting and March 21st, 2024 regular meeting. 24.020, appointments to Council on Aging and Northampton Housing Authority. Positive recommendation on Council on Aging appointments. NHA appointments withdrawal accepted. City Services Committee. So the Council on Aging, Robert Dion and Cynthia Langley have positive recommendations, and the Northampton Housing Authority, Marilyn Richards and Edgardo Cancel, were withdrawn. And a reappointment memo, or reappointment is later in the consent agenda. And the reason for that was that the term length was not correct. 24.047, petitions for weekday and Sunday pool table licenses, Packards. 24.048, application for renewal of secondhand dealer licenses. 24.050, appointments to Council on Aging, Northampton Housing Authority, and Disability Commission for referral to City Services Committee. And they are to the Council on Aging, Ann Romano. To the Northampton Housing Authority, Marilyn Richards for the correct term of 5 years, and Edgardo Cancel. To the Disability Commission, Jenna Perna Elias. Next, 24.053, appointment of Chief Information Officer Luigi Ottaviani for referral to the City Services Committee. 24.042, in order to transfer $7,200 from City Clerk's Personnel Services to ordinary maintenance budget. 24.043, in order to appropriate $171,500 for civil service withdrawal. 24.040, in order to establish water and sewer rates for fiscal year 2025. A package of 8 financial orders to implement fiscal year 25 to 29 capital improvement program. They consist of 24.032, in order to appropriate $25,000 from cemetery trust and income for cemetery restorative work. 24.033, in order to appropriate $3.3 million on the undesignated fund balance funds for various capital projects. 24.034, in order to appropriate $780,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for various capital projects. 24.035, in order to appropriate Smith College gift for classroom PCs and NPS website design. 24.036, in order to authorize borrowing $1.1 million for a fire engine. 24.037, an order to appropriate parking receipts reserved funds for parking projects. 24.038, an order to appropriate PEG access and cable-related funds to NPS infrastructure redundancy project. 24.039, an order to appropriate $500,000 from stabilization for various capital projects. Are there any removals?
Yes.
What are the removals?
The 3.3 million, the 780,000, and the 500,000. So the last and fifth to last.
24.034, 24.036, and 24.039 have been removed. Any others? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Rothenberg and seconded by Councilor Moulton. Roll call, please, Laura.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge, Lips moving. Okay. Got a thumbs up. I believe she's assenting. But Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg,
Yes.
and Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Consent agenda has been approved. We'll now take up 24.034, an order to appropriate $780,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for various capital projects. This is in second reading. Councilor Elkins.
I would like to ask that before anybody moves to put anything on this table for discussion or debate, that we hear from the department heads and the mayor so that we don't end up in a situation where we have to cut off debate. So I would ask that presentations be made first before any motion be put on the floor for discussion and debate.
I second that motion.
Wasn't a motion, it was just a request, which I'm happy to agree to. And so the three orders that are for consideration, Mayor, would you or department heads or others like to speak to them?
Sure. Well, Director LaScalia is here, as is Director McCarthy. Unfortunately, we had, as I think was mentioned, in my 10 years, I'd never seen so many department heads that were available for a hearing as were at the last hearing, and they would have been, some of these questions maybe would have been most appropriately directed to them. But Director McCarthy certainly can answer. Are we starting with 034?
Yes.
Yeah, so if there are any questions around this, Director McCarthy can certainly respond. But as these seem, a lot of these are around schools or Forbes Library, it's too bad the other folks that were here for the hearing when questions are usually asked are no longer available.
Yep, so we have, in fact, right, this is in the Forbes Library and then Northampton Public Schools. Are there questions?
Yeah, so I think there might be some confusion. This really isn't a matter of questions. This is a matter of having more time for consideration. And the dual charter objections to the SIP are also part of an intention for a dual charter objection to these items that are spending from the SIP, and also an intended dual charter objection to any other scheduling attempts to move this up further than what's the currently scheduled regular meeting. So we're just trying to tap the brakes because our constituents are in deep talks with us about things like $600,000 for a tennis court at a school at a time when we are talking about cutting money at schools. And we want to give space to the school committee. We want to give space to have discussions about how much we're putting into sidewalks, whether we're prioritizing the right ones. There's just still ongoing deliberation happening. So this isn't so much a question of what we need to talk about publicly with Director McCarthy or LaScalia right now, or necessarily even amongst each other, although I think it would be good for us to have more discussion. It's really a question of time and timing. So that would be the intention. That was the intention coming into this meeting, was a package of charter objections to any of the large spending. These 3 items amount to $4.5 million. If they can't wait a week, if you've entered into some kind of a contract that needs to be fulfilled for money that hasn't yet been secured, that's also not a council problem. Council didn't create that problem, and that shouldn't take time away from council's deliberation, if that's the case. We are more than happy
Point of
on
order.
a schedule. We are more than happy on a
Order?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't believe we're in debate. There's not a motion on the floor for discussion, so.
Agreed. Councilor Elkins.
A question for the mayor, if you know, or if there's anybody available who might answer what cost overruns or difficulties delaying any of these expenditures might cause.
Sure. I guess I'll turn to Director LaScalia first and then to Director McCarthy. And do you mean on any of the orders that are on the, or if these ones, then I would direct it to Director McCarthy. If it's just 034, are you talking more generally?
I would ask that of any of the ones that have been pulled from the consent agenda. If there's anybody here who can speak to cost overruns and costs to the city that might be caused by even a 2-week delay.
Okay. Okay, looks like Director LaScalia has her camera on.
Director LaScalia, welcome.
Okay. Hi, good evening, councilors. Hopefully my audio is working okay.
Yes.
Just want to let the council know that we are out to bid on our paving and sidewalk work that's been previously announced. So we are out to bid, and we are opening bids on April 10th. So the order for the sidewalk appropriation is going to help pay for that contract. So we do need to execute a contract in a timely manner after the bid opening so that we can get the contractor mobilized and so that we can get the work done. So that is the schedule, and we'd like to get them in the city working quickly. We are seeing price increases. We were just notified that the price of concrete has actually almost tripled. So we were just notified by Mass DOT of that via email a couple of days ago. So, the price of raw materials does fluctuate, and, there are consequences to delay, at least from the public works side, for this particular issue. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Follow-up questions?
Councilor Elkins, then Councilor Rothenberg.
Another question for you, Donna, or also anybody who can speak to it. Are any of these measures or any of these financial orders, do we run the risk of losing the availability of contractors to do the work to other cities who are also looking to line up this work at exactly the same time that we are? Could we run into any issues with that?
I'm just speaking specifically, I have 2 orders in here. So one is for traffic calming and one is for sidewalks. So specifically for sidewalks, as it's lumped with our paving project, we need to be able to execute a contractor with the winning bidder so that the contractor can line up their work. So there are many municipalities and just a few contractors in Western Mass. So what happens is the contracts get bid, the contracts get awarded, and then the contractor sets the schedule. So we want to make sure we're executing our contract in a timely manner so that we get on the schedule. The reason we bid early is so that we can be on the schedule first and hopefully get favorable bid prices. So that's the reason for this timing, and that was the reason that we did a $2 million paving bond several months ago. So that's the story behind the public works project.
So when you say you're out to bid on the
Point
10th,
of order, are we being recognized by the president?
Yep, Councilor Rothenberg.
yeah, he called on me right after you. You might recall. If you're going out to bid on the 10th, hypothetically, if we were to approve this on, say, the 12th, are you still, how long is your bid open?
Yeah, so the bid's open on April 10th, and then we typically execute a contract within 2 or 3 weeks. It takes time to get paperwork, bonds and insurance and that sort of thing. So we just wouldn't want to see like a more than 30-day delay or, something that's sort of taking weeks to resolve. But there's certainly time after the bid opening. We don't execute the contract that day.
Great, thanks.
Oh.
Councilor Elkins.
Another question for whomever is on that can answer it. There are a number of expenditures for the public schools, for dishwasher and upgrade of security alarm panel and other various buildings in the city. I would ask, and this may be a Director McCarthy question, what of these expenditures are things that have been awaiting appropriation and are in imminent need of repair? Is there anything that, and to put it another way, is there anything that if we had known of this, of a potential delay, might have been pulled out and asked for a second, a suspension of the rules? So that's also maybe a question for Director Nardi as well.
Central Services is in the same position as Director LaScalia. We're kind of behind the curve as far as when contractors bid. The cities are typically behind schedule. Just think of it as a project you have in your home. Contractors actually bid or and estimate their work in the fall. And they are, especially now after the COVID, pandemic, the contractors, there are less contractors out there, prices are higher, and they are booked like very early spring for their summer work. As of today, the city is at a disadvantage because a lot of their schedules are booked. And that puts us in a position where prices go higher, we may end up with a less qualified contractor. And Central Services has already, in anticipation, been working on the design of a lot of the projects that are listed here. City Hall, I hope to put out to bid tomorrow. We've also have fronted the design on the Forbes Library Children's renovation, as well as, I have notes here. Sorry. Here we go. All right. We've been working on the Forbes Library bathroom upgrades since 2020. The PD contract for the design of the remaining repairs at the PD garage are in design right now. The JFK tennis courts have actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've been on the list since 2015. We've gone through several years of repair, and it's at the point where it needs attention now, especially if we're going to get a good selection of contractors with good competitive bids. And we're running late on that. The sooner the better. I don't know if I answered your question, I'm sorry.
No, thank you, you did.
Thank you. And were there any other questions for staff about these, Councilor Rothenberg?
Do you all work under the assumption that things will just come to City Council and get passed through, or do you work under the assumption that there's time, like Donna had time, she said maybe 30 days while it's out to bid, that we can still be able to be getting these financial orders released. When you put things out to bid like this a little bit ahead of us, giving you the approval, does that factor in some wiggle room for us to be able to deliberate? I hear you saying that for some things, waiting 2 weeks could really back up a contractor's schedule. What are the particular projects you've got lined up that you think can't sustain, say, a week delay? For which ones is a week too much?
Is that to Director McCarthy?
Yes.
We're presently getting prices on the guardrails at the Gare Garage. We did also front that design. The City Hall exterior repairs, like I said, I would bid tomorrow if I knew that this passed. I didn't bid it tonight or yet today or before this, but the design is shovel ready, and we can go out to bid as soon as possible. Again, I make the point that even a week pushes. We've been working on these projects since last summer. As I said the last time I was before you, we had actually started the work at Memorial Hall in the spring of 2023. And here we are in the spring of 2024. And similar to City Hall, a delay would lessen the amount of contractors, qualified contractors to bid. Typically, best case scenario is to have a contractor start in June. But typically the way that the SIP is funded, we end up starting construction in September and October, just because everything is so delayed. I've taken a proactive approach this year by trying to get the designs and the bid package together early, so that we could actually start some construction in June or July. So time is money, as they say in the construction field.
Mayor.
I just want to say that Director McCarthy, Director Scalia, all the directors do a fabulous job of getting these projects ready, so that they can move quickly and they can maximize taxpayer resources to be able to get the best prices on things and also to be able to work within sort of the short construction window that we have. I think Director LaScalia has something else she'd like to add.
Director LaScalia.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Jarrett. Just to answer Councilor Rothenberg's question, we could, if I had to, I could issue an addendum to the bid saying that I needed the removal of something because there was, further deliberation happening on it. So that's a possibility. We're certainly not committed. We would not spend money that we don't have. But just to echo the mayor's comments, we have a very short construction window. We're looking at like May to October. And we are competing for resources with every other municipality, within Western Mass for just a few paving contractors. So we have very, very, very tight windows to operate in, which is why we need to try to front load our money and sort of get the appropriation before the construction season starts, because otherwise we just can't get the work done before the contractors demobilize for the winter. So I hope that's helpful information.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then Councilor Moulton.
Well, this is not a question, but I want to, in the spirit of Councilor Rothenberg's calling for more workshopping on the CIP, I want to speak to the largest expenditure in this order, which is the $600,000 for JFK tennis court being rebuilt.
Sorry to interrupt, but would you like to put that on the floor for debate? Move approval of that, and then we could debate that. The process was we were going to ask questions of staff,
okay,
and then move to approval.
Well, I will wait until and see if there's any further.
Thank you. Councilor Labarge, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to thank our department head, John Lascalia, for explaining the seriousness involved here. And also our director from Central Service, Pat McCarthy. If you look at this happening, it's because of reasons that the departments have to go ahead and look at contractors. How much time involved here? Let's look at Northampton High School.
Yeah, similar, Councilor Labarge. We're
Yes.
currently asking questions of city staff, and we will debate these, the orders
Oh, okay.
shortly.
All
Did
right.
you have any questions for the staff?
No, that's okay.
Okay. It sounds like we're ready to put one of these on the floor.
I will move to put this on the floor for
And-
approval.
Second.
Which one?
The first one we were just talking about, the 24.
034, in order to appropriate $780,000 from capital stabilization fund.
Second. I'm sorry,
Mo-
Just,
Motion made by Councilor Perry and seconded by Councilor Mayor. So that is now on the floor.
point of information, which of these orders has the tennis court in it?
That one.
Okay, great, perfect. Thank you.
It's now on the floor. Councilor Moulton.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to speak briefly to the tennis courts because that is the largest expenditure in this order. And although I've had no constituents contact me about the tennis courts, pro or con, I have had the opportunity over these intervening 5 weeks to do some homework, to ask some questions about it. The tennis courts at JFK are not just for a school. They are used by the high school teams. They're an athletic facility for student athletes at the high school. They are used by JFK students for their physical education. But and moreover, they are used by the entire community. According to the rec department, 475 people took lessons on those courts last year. And they're the only tennis courts in Northampton that are available to the public at no cost. So this is a community resource that is in dire need, as Director McCarthy said, of immediate attention. These are 28-year-old courts, and for that reason, I certainly support this expenditure.
And I will speak to that as well, that these capital projects, you see this large number of $600,000, but you have to consider how many years that will last. And when you divide that over, they're currently 28 years old. There's been some repair. But when you divide that total cost by the number of years, you get a pretty small amount per year, and that's important to realize in any capital project. Councilor Elkins.
Yeah, I also just want to note about the tennis courts in particular is that they are deteriorating to the point that they are quickly approaching unusable. That also, so it is a community project that benefits the whole community, but it is worth noting that our high school tennis team cannot. I think they may already be in the position where they can't host home matches because of the condition of the court, but if I'm wrong about that, I do know that it is the case that the tennis courts are approaching the point where they are approaching the point of being unusable, and that if we don't fix them, it's a rip out and not have them situation, not a repair situation anymore.
Chief of Staff Wolf.
I'm going to add that Parks and Rec has in fact reached out to Smith College to see if they can use their courts for high school tennis matches.
In the interim? Or?
Yes, because they can't, they're not able to use our courts.
Councilor Rothenberg?
Thanks. I think it's important to understand that the objection to this spending on these tennis courts requires holding a perspective which some of us don't hold. So we disagree about an underlying thing about this money, about the $600,000. Councilor Elkins feels it's a one-time expense and these kinds of things can't be used for schools. We hear that also from our mayor's office. The public, much of the public, and myself as Representative Ward 3, we fundamentally disagree on that premise that this money in these kinds of silos can only be used in certain ways. We don't believe that there are legal restrictions on the ways that we can allocate the money that we have. And when we look at a tennis court in a year when we're receiving letters from fourth graders about how hard it is at their schools right now, we don't think to ourselves, a tennis court will solve that. So you have to understand in that context, we're making hard choices. And that's why we're objecting to these kinds of things, because we have a different understanding of how we could and should be budgeting. And we understand that it may be complex to change some of our, say, silos for stabilization. It has to go through a legislative process to be changed. But we're committed to doing that work, and we would like to see us do that work. So I'm not going to make us come in for a special meeting on this. I'm only going to lodge a charter objection if it's a joint. So I'm not going to make you guys do any extra scheduling. But I do want you to understand that we fundamentally feel that it's very important to be looking at every dollar we spend, and to a great many in our community, a dollar is a dollar right now. And we can do creative things to apply these dollars to other places, and we're expecting our leaders to do that.
Councillor Clemmer.
I looked at all these expenses too, because I feel like Councillor Rothenberg does, that the schools are in dire straits. And then I started, when I looked at them, a lot of the expenses had been postponed for years, and they will, like the tennis court, for example, it's going to cover us hopefully another 28 years. And it is less expensive to take care of things before they're unusable. And a lot of those, like the roof that's going to be repaired, and some doors, and a lot of the other items that are on the list, it makes more sense to do it now before the roof is falling off, or before siding's falling off, or because the buildings, we have to take care of the buildings too in town, and I think we have to look at the big picture.
Councillor Labarge and then Councillor Elkins. You're muted, Councillor Labarge. There you go.
Okay, thank you. I understand where the Ward 3 Councilor Bartley is coming at. The tennis courts, and I want to thank Alan Wolf for bringing up about Smith College. I had a resident who had notified me, and Alan took care of the concerns of the use of Smith College, because our tennis courts were unbearable, very, very unbearable to even use. Many people have called in the way that our tennis courts were looking. Yes, this is money. Every dollar does count right now in our city. But if we continuously take away and take away, then we are looking at complete destruction here. And I don't want to see that happen at all. I support this money for the tennis courts because it's used by a lot of people in our city. A lot of the seniors use them also. So it's something that has been put in plans here, and I agree with donating and giving out what we can for our citizens here in the city of Northampton. And they are agreeing to have the tennis court be taken care of. Thank you.
Councillor Elkins and then Director Nardi.
I actually withdraw.
Okay, Director Nardi.
Thank you. So I want to clarify, so the stabilization funds were created for the purpose, especially the capital stabilization fund, for capital projects. And again, it's not a matter of opinion. Recurring funds are used for operating budgets. Non-reoccurring funds, or your reserves, by DOR and financial best practices should not be used for reoccurring operations. Otherwise, you end up with a hole because eventually you're not going to have those funds. So in 2 years or less, you will use all the funds and you will have nothing. You won't be able to keep your infrastructure, and you will not be able to fill that hole. So again, it is not a matter of opinion. It is best practices, DOR recommended, to use your reserves for one-time expenses, and for reoccurring expenses, use your revenues that you know are coming in. So again, not a matter of opinion. It is best financial practices.
And could you speak to how we establish the budgets for, how we establish what we expect to take in as income, and how we establish our budgets, our recurring operating budgets?
So right, your first step in creating any budget is determining how much you have for revenue, reoccurring revenue that's coming in. So we project reoccurring revenue based on 5 years of historical data. Again, the pandemic has made this a little more challenging in order to do that, because things have fluctuated and things have changed. We're starting to see a better history, a more consistent, but that's how we determine our revenues. And again, DOR recommends that you budget conservatively. You do not want to go to the top of your revenue source, because if it drops, then you have an unbalanced budget. And by law, we must have a balanced budget that we bring forward. So our expenses are determined based on how much money we know is coming in.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
I want to read from the Massachusetts Municipal Association's question: what is a stabilization fund and how may it be used? It's a fund, it's a mechanism for setting aside money either for unforeseen needs or for capital projects. The fund is intended to equalize and so on. If you go to Chapter 40, Section B, the law says at any time you may alter the purpose of the fund, which may be used for any legal purpose, any lawful purpose. And it's recently been updated in terms of how flexible it is. It's really, really quite flexible. When you say it's not a matter of opinion and it's best practices are opinions. That's what they are. It's not law. There's a difference between a law and a best practice. I want to be able to wrap this up with letting you all do what you are going to do. I just want to note things like planning for tennis courts for so long, planning for them for a long time, is really paling in comparison to a 4-year-old a fourth grader writing to us today and saying, to Councilor Clemmer's point, if it could be a little bit quieter in the room. It's really quite distracting. I'm having an accommodation request with that. Thank you. We had a fourth grader write to us today and say, just as buildings will fall down if they're not taken care of, so will these kids who don't have tiered support specialists. And I think that some of you are really not seeing the impact on the kids emotionally, psychologically. I think you're not quite understanding the difference between a tennis court falling apart and a child falling apart. And I really want to caution you, as the last thing I'll say about it, your constituents can see the difference. So do what you will do, but they can see the difference between a tennis court falling apart and a child falling apart. And they're making their voices loudly heard on that.
Councilor Elkins, then Councilor Clemmer.
Councilor Rothenberg, it would probably help your constituents to explain to them that if we spend money this year to keep a person on staff that we then can't pay for next year, that might also have a detrimental effect on their child. I am deeply offended by your suggestion that those of us who are adhering to municipal financing best practices, that are not making moves to bankrupt our city, to deplete our stabilization funds, as it has been being suggested by some people that we do, that we don't care about our kids. There are more people in this room with kids in the public schools than probably have ever been the case in city council ever. The way this discussion is being had is divisive and hurtful. And I just wish that you had gone to the MMA new counselor orientation that explained the budgeting process so that you would understand that. We cannot spend non-recurring funds on recurring expenses. It is like putting a down payment with your lottery winnings on a house that you then can't pay the mortgage on. We cannot do it. And whatever we spend out of non-recurring funds this year will mean a bigger override, more frequent overrides, and every single one of them has to pass citywide by popular vote, and that costs money and time and is not a guaranteed thing. So I very much, the people that are writing you are also writing me and every other counselor on here. We hear them. They are operating under some pretty fundamental misunderstandings of how the city budget must work. We cannot let our buildings deteriorate, and even if we did and we chose to make that decision this year, it would not solve the problem going forward. So we need to move on and pass so that our high school has a dishwasher, that our high school can replace and upgrade its security alarm panel, that district-wide playground repairs can be made, that damaged and dying trees at Ryan Road School that are posing a significant liability risk to the city can be taken care of. And yes, we need to fix the tennis court. So I'm really sorry. I know you find it thrilling when I get angry, but the fact is that this conversation has become divisive in a way that it doesn't have to be, and I wish you would join the rest of us in explaining to our constituents how things actually work, and stop perpetuating the idea that we can make unicorns and rainbows happen just because we want them to.
Councilor Clemmer.
Thank you. I just want to clarify what I said before. I don't want to misinterpret it. I do care deeply about the schools and the kids in the schools and their future and their well-being while they're at school. But I also care about the city and the infrastructure. And I also get a lot of emails from constituents complaining about the sidewalks and the streets and saying it's getting to be a third world town because everything, there's holes in the streets. And also, if we don't take care of this stuff now, we're in another situation like we were a couple months ago with the building next door and having to make emergency repairs, which are way more expensive than doing it in a planned, orderly fashion like we are now over a period of time. And also, this money is different. If we kind of, I think it's part of how we got in this situation too, because we have been using one-time funds like, the COVID funds to pay and patch things together. And we kept hearing if we don't do something and stop doing it that way, we're going to wind up in this situation, which here we are now. And, we just have to make a better plan and use money. These are recurring funds. I went to the meeting a few weeks ago with, her name's Tracy, but I can't remember. But yeah, she, went to that meeting. I went to the meeting on Monday, and I listened to all this to try to learn more about it. And it's really clear, we need money. We need recurring funds to take care of the teachers and to keep them in their jobs. And it's hard, I feel horrible that people might lose their jobs. It's, the young people in our town, and they need work. They've done a great job, and they're losing their job because they didn't do a good job. It's because the funds aren't there, and I feel horrible. These are people and families that we're talking about. It's really tough decisions we have to make.
Councilor Perry, then Councilor Maori.
Sorry. I also have to say that I am, again, disappointed in how divisive some of this seems to be. I want to remind everyone that when they put together the CIP, no one's trying to throw stuff in that they don't need. They're within a budget. That's why they're ranking the things that they need. Again, some of these projects have been put off for years, for decades. And every director is making a difficult decision before it even gets to us. And I also want to talk about this kind of comparison of what a tennis court will be to a child versus a teacher. It feels like a very narrow view. We've thrown about this one message from a child, which I read, and it touched my heart. As a proud parent of a kid in the public school, every one of the letters means something to me. I chose to raise my kids here. I chose to run for office here because I believe in this city. But when we talk about the difference between a teacher and a tennis court, is you forget that for some kids, physical activity is an out. It is their way to connect. It is their way to engage. It keeps them going day to day, and they deserve to have that as well. And I think that, right now the way the conversation has been focused and kind of diminishing the importance of this tennis court is very frustrating and, again, disappointing to me. Councilor Elkin knows, I played my first game of pickleball recently. Went over to the JFK courts just to check it out, and I was amazed at all the people who were utilizing those tennis courts as well. My brother came with me, played some basketball. It is a great resource to be able to go and use that tennis court that not only serves our kids. Again, our kids use those courts, but as people said, the community. This is something that really is going to touch many, many lives. So I'm ready to move on and approve this.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate all the comments from my fellow councilors. I just wanted to caution, I understand, it's emotional time, but we don't want to add to any kind of division by kind of implying that what our residents want are rainbow or unicorns or think that's possible. I mean, there's a reason that narrative's out there. It's in fact that we did use one-time funds for education, for better or for worse. So I'm just putting that out there. And also, I think it's valid to, it's a valid conversation to talk about how we estimate our expenditures and revenues and how we come up with these one-time funds to begin with. They're not born one-time funds, We make decisions, and I'm just saying that those are valid conversations to have. It's a valid conversation to talk about why we establish a climate stabilization fund versus a special needs or special education fund. I mean, these are conversations. I just want to watch our tone, because I think I don't want residents to feel kind of talked down to or shamed about wanting to have these conversations or having really serious questions about our process. So I'm just putting that out there. Thank you.
Councilor Labarge, did you withdraw your hand? Okay. Councilor Moulton.
Well, I want to pick up on what Councilor Elkins and Clemmer both said in part during their remarks. I think we need only look at the experience of the school department over the past several years and how it got into a situation where we're facing nearly a $3 million budget deficit, and both the mayor and Superintendent Bonner have identified the culprits largely being the use of these one-time money that's intended for one-time spending, primarily the school choice and the pandemic relief funds, the ESSER funds, as a reason for this very difficult deficit that we're facing. If we turn around and we devote more money from the stabilization funds to a fix this year, and I supported the mayor last year in her $1.2 million taking it from the stabilization fund. It was clear to me that that was a one-year solution when I voted on the budget last year. But if we do that again, we're looking at either tremendous overrides and more frequent overrides that I think would be very difficult to sell to the community, or we're looking at the potential bankrupting of our entire city's finances. We cannot, that the taking of money for stabilization for operating costs is simply not sustainable. And we have to, we have learned that lesson. So I very much object to the notion that that's going to be a long-term solution. It is not, and in fact, it's fiscally irresponsible.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. I heard from Councilor Elkins, Councilor Perry, and I feel the same way they do. As a mother of two boys who went to grammar school, Ryan Road School, right through Northampton High School with a great education, that bothered me when I hear, as a counselor, I've never ever heard this as a city councilor, of comparing a tennis court with our children. That is not true here. Not true. We care about our children. Everybody does in this city. But we also have a responsibility as a counselor of looking at this budget and what is needed by our department heads. That's where the value is. It doesn't happen overnight with our department heads, our mayor, our financial director, even everybody's involved in making decisions here. So I understand what's going on. And I'm just hoping that we move on here. We are the city councilors here. We represent everybody in this city, no matter who they are. And I just feel we need to move on and support what is put in front of us. We have heard our director speak, we've heard our mayor speak, we've had our financial director to speak. Maybe this is a learning period, especially for our new councilors coming aboard. Maybe there should be a longer process here before something comes like this to city council, for them to understand this whole process of the 5-year plan. That's what I feel right now. So thank you anyways, and thank you all the councilors.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
Councilor Labarge, I enjoy working with you so much, and I also want to add, respectfully, maybe these are also learning periods for our older, longer-serving councilors. Every year is a new council, and every year we have a chance to look at our processes again. We got a little bit off track in the conversation tonight. When we were talking about stabilization funds, the reason I raised those was just one way to illustrate that a dollar is a dollar, and legally with those we have mechanisms for changing what those funds are for. That's just an example. I, in fact, never said anything on the record about that we should or shouldn't use those to fund our schools. What I'm talking about is the notion that to the people of Northampton that I'm hearing from, a dollar is a dollar. We don't want to bankrupt our city. We don't want to be funding our schools with temporary things. We do want to be really conservative and thoughtful and careful about how we spend all of our money so that we don't have to ask for overrides, so that we can fund our schools. And sometimes that means a city council slowing down and going through a process to make sure we're looking at the essentials first. And I'm just saying to you tonight, I think I want to hear from the school committee first before I decide whether we still get to keep our tennis court. I want to hear from the school committee, and I want to then look at the whole city budget, and then I want to decide if the police need to have 3 new cars right now, because I don't know if those math teachers are more important than those police cars.
This is going beyond the motion on the floor. I'd also note that under the rules, Robert's Rules of Orders of Debate, no member can speak a second time to a question as long as any member desires to speak who hasn't already spoken, and that also no member shall speak more than twice during the same day to the same question.
I overrule you on the second one because I have been making sure everyone can speak once before. First, you are straying a little bit from the matter at hand. So if you could keep to the point of the stabilization funds. And
right. Well, the stabilization funds were not the point. The tennis court was the point. You know, sort of what this whole order was about. Primarily, is the tennis court. And I just want to give one final opportunity for this council to change the process in terms of letting the school have their vote, us taking a beat, waiting a week. We can schedule a regular meeting for the 12th. I mean, there's absolutely a way to have this stuff still go forward in a timely fashion and allow the school committee to go first and just hear what they need. So that was my proposal tonight, was that we wait a week. It sounds from Donna that she's got 30 days wiggle room. It sounds from McCarthy that some of his things he'd really like to do right away. I'd really like to wait on this tennis court, and I'd just like to get a bigger picture of our overall finances as a city, starting with the school committee, then coming to us. And so I think that we could move at some point to delay this, or the two of us could go forward with our joint charter objection, and then we could schedule a meeting in a week. I just think that's the right thing to do. It's just a week, but it's a good process to let the schools go first.
I'll go ahead and speak. We've heard about our best practices. We've heard about the state's how the state keeps a close look at how we do our budgeting processes. If we don't, and it's an important note is, we rely on setting aside money for capital projects through the use of what we have at the end, if we have extra at the end of the year. Some years we may not. Some years we'll spend, as very much what our budgets are, and we will have very little to add to our stabilization funds, or that will be certified as free cash. So what we rely on is the average, and we use the stabilization funds so that we have the right amount of money, so we have the money we need for the capital projects. So it's actually an essential part of our process that we do have this additional that from our operating budget. And so we must budget in a way that on average will give us that money. So I understand objecting to a particular capital project. And I don't see that we are, the majority here is being swayed. So what will you accomplish with the delay other than potentially increased costs from delayed bids? Councilor Rothenberg, yes, please.
The intent is twofold. Very simple. One, so that we are not in any way influencing what's happening with the school committee. So we're not setting aside money and saying it's definitely already being used this way. We're keeping options open. If they're voting in a week, I want to keep their options open and just hear from them before we make choices. That's the first thing. The second thing is it gives us time to be thinking about, if we want to maximize things like sidewalks, it just gives us a little more time to think about, are we ready to spend this money on this capital improvement? Have we really thought enough about accessibility, about recommitting ourselves to ADA, about whether we're doing enough for our sidewalks and things like that? So it's twofold. It's for the sidewalks and for the schools. It's really to just take a bigger view picture at our budget before we go forward. And the amount of money we would lose because of asphalt going up, or the amount of time we'd have to wait, I mean, I don't know that that's actually significant compared to the quality of life that we can improve for all the people in our city. Maybe it's the cost of doing business.
And you believe that through this delay, you will, and the information that we may gather in this next week or however, that you will sway our votes?
Well, I think we'll definitely be more informed. Like I said, we wanted to have a meeting with the mayor today. Councilor Maori, Councilor Dubs, the mayor, Director LaScalia, and myself were all scheduled to do a deep dive on the sidewalks one final time before we vote. We'd really like an opportunity to reschedule that. We put that meeting on in pretty short order, and I would hope that we could reschedule that. And yeah, I think that Councilor Dubs probably, or Councilor Maori, may put forward a very thoughtful motion in 1 week about shifting money from a little bit from somewhere. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's not tennis courts, maybe it's somewhere else, but shifting money to sidewalks and shifting the priority of which sidewalks we're working on. I think we should give it time to just have that motion.
Councilor Elkins.
Is there any reason why, if anybody wants to work with DPW and propose a potential project or adjustment later down the road, that we ought to delay our vote on these projects?
Who is that a question for?
Right,
Or
it's a
is it
question
rhetorical?
I would actually direct that question to Director Nardi. And then as far as the procedural question to you, Councilor Jarrett. As the availability of potential motions or opportunities to pursue some additional project down the road that a councilor was interested in.
Take Director Nardi, would you like to speak to that?
And I apologize, I'm not clear what the question to me was. My understanding is for a financial order, you can vote it up or down, or you can remove. You can't move money from one project to another. So, and the order before you is for capital stabilization, which legally can't be spent on anything else because you voted it for a specific purpose, so you'd have to change the purpose of the stabilization fund.
And so then I would take my, sort of the next part of the question to you, Councilor Jarrett. Is there any reason by which we could not pursue with the mayor's office a potential capital project to be properly, funded through the appropriate source, and that we don't have any? It's not the case that we don't have any ability to work with the mayor's office to talk about potential projects or other priorities. We don't have to vote this down or delay this vote to be able to continue to do that work in the future. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, remember that in terms of finances, our direct power is to reduce or say vote no. Our collective power, together with the mayor's office and councilors, is to work together to find something that we can all agree on, or that we have a majority that agrees with, and together we can design something that we believe works best for the city. So it wouldn't, without, and I can speak to Councilor Rothenberg and Dubs, without working with the mayor, we potentially, if we had a majority to cut, we can reduce something, but we can't reallocate. So our power is really in working together. Councilor Clemmer, did you still have your hand up, or was that a new hand?
It's the same hand.
Okay. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yeah, I mean, we can reallocate stabilization funds for one. That's separate. The point.
Confusing.
Sorry, okay, well, leave it aside because it's not even important. I don't want to drag us down to that right now. The point is, we only have so much money. Like, that's the whole point. It's not that we don't have processes to decide how to spend other stuff. It's that we have limited resources. I'm trying to tap our brakes on spending. I'm trying to get us to be more fiscally responsible. We don't have a lot of money right now. We've really got to slow down with the spending. Be more thoughtful. Not that everybody's not working super, super, super hard and that you haven't thought a lot about it, but I think we need to think more about it.
Any other discussion on this item on the floor? All right, seeing none, roll call, please, Laura.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Councilor Labarge, you're muted.
You know, Councilor President, I don't know what's happening here, but I
Sure.
have it unmuted, then all of a sudden, a line will go through it and shuts it off. But anyways, what are we voting on? I didn't hear.
24.034, an order to appropriate $780,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for various capital projects. That's what was on the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes.
okay. Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes?
Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg,
No.
Counselor Dobbs,
Nope.
and Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
So that motion passes 7-2. Next, we'll go to, we actually took them a little out of order from how they were removed. So 24.033, in order to appropriate $3.3 million undesignated fund balance funds for various capital projects in second reading.
I think it's the same discussion, so I just move to approve. I mean, I feel like these two, if there's a way to move them both in the two orders that I took out, is it possible to move through them together?
So your motion is to move 24.033 and 24.039 as a group?
Yeah, I would say as the person who removed them, the discussion that we just had encompasses everything I would have also objected to these items for, so I think we've concluded.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Rothenberg and seconded by Councilor Elkins to move these two as a group. Is there discussion on this item? Councilor Dobbs.
Yeah, just looking at this item, Just looking at this item, I would encourage other councilors to vote yes on it because it includes exterior door ADA upgrades at Northampton Public Schools, which I approve of. So I just would say that I would encourage other people to.
Thank you. Seeing none, Laura, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, can I just make one last comment before we vote? Although I agree with those, I think we could do it better than lumping it in with the $4 million that I don't necessarily agree with all of. So I'm going to vote no, but I do want those doors fixed too. Okay.
Roll call, please, Laura.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg,
No.
Counselor Dobbs,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Jarrett.
Yes. Those two, 24.033 and 24.039, passed 8-1. How's everyone doing? Do we need a recess?
Yes, brief recess, please.
Yep. Let's come back in at about 7 minutes, 9:09. Welcome back. We have moved on from the consent agenda and its items to financial orders on first reading. 24.051, an order authorizing expenditure of Academy of Music gifted funds for chandelier. Would someone from the mayor's office like to speak to this?
So, yes, when the fire suppression system was being done at the Academy of Music, the board of, the Academy of Music board wanted to add a chandelier, and they've determined that the best way to install that was while the work was being done for the fire suppression system, so they combined those two projects, but the agreement with the city was that they would pay for any of the work that was required to update any electrical or any of the work to actually get it up there. So that work has been done, and if you haven't had a chance to see the chandelier in place, but the invoice has been carved out, and their portion of the work was $17,322.04, which is specifically related to the chandelier. And therefore, we have requested a check from a gift from the Academy of Music in order to pay that portion of the invoice. So my request to you tonight is to authorize the expenditure of that gift for the purposes of the work that was done to support installing the chandelier.
Thank you. Discussion? Be looking for then.
Move to,
Go ahead, Councilor Perry.
I just want to say that I have been able to see that chandelier. My daughter was in Matilda, and it was awesome. It was shining, shimmering, splendid. And then I will move to approve. I'm sorry, you don't have to make any motion.
You can refer to the consent agenda or to finance.
I'd refer to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Perry and seconded by Councilor Moulton to move this item to the consent agenda of our next meeting. Discussion on referral. Seeing none, roll call, please, on referral.
Councilor Maori,
yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg,
Abstain.
Councilor Dobbs,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Councilor Labarge.
Do you need help being unmuted, Councilor Labarge, or are you
Yes.
able to? Yes, okay, great. Okay, that passes with 8 yes votes and 1 abstention. So that will appear on the consent agenda of our next meeting. Whether that is April 18th or May 2nd will be determined later. The next is 24.052, in order to reprogram funds for Northampton Public Schools district-wide field renovations.
So, yes, the supervisor of school maintenance, Tony Kusners, has requested that we take the remaining funds from the Northampton Public Schools grounds equipment account, which is the amount of $16,947.92, and have it be reprogrammed for the purposes of district-wide field renovation funds to be used for addressing the softball and baseball fields and for additional studies on organic field maintenance. The funds, or that original district-wide grounds equipment, was used to purchase mowers, snow removal equipment, line striping machines, and parts for the infield machine that they use on this baseball and softball and maintenance tools for equipment. They are done purchasing equipment, and as you have probably noticed, we have been trying to move some of our accounts where they're a little more flexible so that they can use them from in multiple places, so it's not designated just for one school, since the funding is all the same. So he is requesting that we use it for the purposes of the, for the district-wide field renovations.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions or a motion? Councilor Moulton.
I had a question for the mayor or her staff. What are the questions that are going to be the subject of the additional studies for organic field management?
So right now, there is I'm trying to think of whether it's an ad hoc committee or there's a committee that's been brought together that involves the city department heads. Actually, Director Lascalia, I think, has been on it. And maybe.
Tony's on it, too.
What?
Tony's on it, too.
So the folks that have implemented organic, pesticide-free maintenance on the city side, working with the folks on the school side to see how they can implement that into all of the turf maintenance. So they've been working together as a group to come up with, a path forward so that the schools can meet the city in compliance with that.
Right, so expanding then the organic to school
Right.
fields. Great, thank you.
Councilor Maori.
Right. So, Mayor, that's because our pesticide policy that was passed by council doesn't have authority or purview over the schools, so they have to have their separate organic process.
And I believe that they had said by December, maybe, that they would come into compliance with what the city ordinance was, even though they were an exclusion in the ordinance, that was the goal of the schools to also have pesticide-free turf.
Yeah, cool. They're self-motivated.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that this is moving along. I've been following our transition of our fields to organic practices.
It's expensive is one of the problems, which is why it hasn't been implemented.
Right.
Yeah. And challenging also because it involves resting fields, and it's easier in the recreation side. In the school fields, there's just limited fields. There's some fields that are the only places where certain things can be played on, so you can't necessarily rest that field for a year. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to refer this to the consent agenda of our next meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll withdraw that motion till we hear from Councilor Labarge. Councilor Labarge, please, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to thank our financial director and the mayor again about how this fund is being put in place. And I want to thank Councilor Muir also about explaining the ordinance that was put in place because of the outcry of using pesticides in our fields. I had received so many calls and emails from people in the city and in Ward 6 about the deplorable conditions of our fields for sports, for everybody in the community to use. I am going to support this because it is in dire need. Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to refer this to the consent agenda of our next meeting.
Second it.
Councilor Maori made it first, so motion made by Councilor Jarrett and seconded by Councilor Maori. A discussion on referral or further discussion? Okay, seeing none, a roll call, please, Laura.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
And Councilor Maori.
Yes.
That passes.
I'm so sorry. Before we just leave this, I received a question for the mayor on this topic that the public was asking, which was whether this had been recommended.
It's already passed.
Okay. It was whether the committee had come back with a recommendation yet, just so you know, public has that question. And we can circle back on
I'm
that.
sure you can follow up and get that person the answer.
Yeah.
24.055, in order to revoke acceptance of state law creating opioid settlement stabilization fund. Who would like to speak to this? Be like, if you have like on Jeopardy, first buzz in.
You're going to buzz in first? You want me to do it?
I can buzz in first. It's up to you. So yes, I don't think you want me to read this whole thing.
If you want to summarize, that would be
Okay.
great, and explain perhaps for the newer counselors that I forget, when did we create this fund? Was that, this?
So we created it in June 2023.
Yep.
So when the state started making, coming and making these settlements, and the municipalities had signed on for these, what's the right word I'm looking for?
The opioid
Yes, for the opioid settlements. Once they were starting to be signed on to, and we knew what the amounts of money we were getting to, settlement funds by finance law must go, by Massachusetts law, must go into the general fund. But the settlement funds have very specific and restrict ways in which they can be spent. So immediately when we started doing that, DOR started working with the legislature to pass legislation that would allow us not to put it into the general fund, but to put it in special revenue funds. As the year, June FY 2023 came closer, it was clear that the legislation wasn't going to pass. We did not want that to go into the general fund and be flushed to the undesignated fund balance. We wanted to be able to track it. So DOR recommended that we create stabilization funds in order to do that as they continued to work on the legislation. So as in December of 2023, Governor Healy signed that legislation allowing us to have a special revenue fund for these opioid settlement funds. So you created the fund as we requested, so we didn't have to put them in our general fund and have to track them that way. And now I'm back to say the legislation has been passed, and I'm asking you to revoke that, and we will use a special revenue fund to track that and report that as we are required.
Councilor Elkins.
And just to be clear, it was always the case that these funds were going to be limited in how they could spend. So it was just like a mechanism about, for lack of any place else to put them, they were going to go in the general fund, but still have to be tracked?
That's correct.
Okay.
We needed to put it somewhere.
And limited use, right? They were
They're
always
still
going to be limited.
always limited use, and we have to report the use.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a little bit frustrating that they kind of got the cart before the horse, and so they were like, all right, just create a stabilization fund. And then they're like, okay, well, now you don't need to do that anymore. So please revoke that. So it's not a big deal. It's just a little annoyance.
Any more questions or discussion? Looking for a motion?
Move to the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Moulton to refer to the consent agenda of our next meeting. Seeing no further discussion, roll call on that. Laura, please.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
And Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Okay, that passes, and we are on to orders. 24.041, an order to amend council rules to allow for recess to remote-only meeting. And Laura, would you be able to put this up on the screen? I'd like us to be able to see the proposed amendment. Okay. Sorry, I just have to make this big enough for me to be able to read it. So, I'll just read it and then explain. So, in order to amend the rules to allow for recess to remote-only meeting, ordered that the following amendment is made to the council rules 4.10.recess and Laura, is that you?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've been muting
thank you.
Councilor Barger, and I think it's been Laura. Oh, well.
4.10, recess. A, any counselor may call for and be granted a recess, the length of which will be determined by the presiding officer. So no change there other than adding a heading. B, the presiding officer may call for the recess of a hybrid meeting to be resumed as a remote-only meeting where the presiding officer determines that a disruption, disturbance, or other interruption materially interferes with continuing the in-person portion of such hybrid meeting. Prior to the recess, the presiding officer shall designate the time for the resumption of the meeting as remote only, giving adequate time for each counselor to log into the meeting remotely. So this came after our February 15th meeting, and then also hearing from how other municipalities across the country have dealt with disturbances where they're unable to continue business. So this would allow us to go into a recess, go home or City Hall or wherever we would like to go, and then resume as a remote-only meeting. I spoke with Isley from Northampton Open Media, and it would be very likely that Isley would, or Northampton Open Media could remain here, and even members of the public could watch the deliberations here still, but that the counselors would be at a remote-only meeting. It's to allow us to continue the business that is timely, that we need to attend to, without having to use up much more of our time to call special meetings. I don't see it as not listening to what the public has to say. I think that we have our public comment period, we have the time. And we certainly have many opportunities to listen, but when it's a disruption of the necessary business of the council, then this would be where we would invoke this, or where the presiding officer would invoke it. Councilor Maori.
Yeah, just to add that the other use of this would be sudden inclement weather, and as we know, that's not always predictable. So if we had some situation where, didn't we talk about that, if the weather was getting worse and worse, we could call recess into a remote meeting.
Yes, this would only apply where we'd already started.
Right.
It's not
so
something
it's unusual, but I'm just saying that to me,
Yeah.
you never know. New England weather.
Yeah, if there was a power failure only here, but not anywhere else, there's various other things where it's possible that we could resume if necessary. And, if it's a situation where we don't need to, where there are things we can easily put off, then we could just choose to do that. But it gives us the options. Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I agree with this. I think what had happened to all of us counselors last time, we had to go ahead and have 2 extra meetings in 1 week. Some of the counselors weren't able to attend, but that's fine. But I'm hearing what Councilor Muir was saying about weather being bad. If the buildings are being closed because of bad weather, then we would continue with doing Zooming, correct, Councilor Jarrett?
It's one possible, I think it would meet the definition of what's in this rule. So it is a possible use. It might also be, if for example, if we wanted to give the presiding officer or whoever the opportunity to make the decision to go to a remote-only meeting prior to the meeting starting, that would be a separate rule. whether for weather or health concerns, that we could consider in the future. But this one is specifically about, we've already started, and for some reason, we want to switch. So weather could, if some circumstance where we knew the weather was going to be really bad in an hour and we could get home, then that could possibly be a use. But the impetus was disruption of the meeting. Councilor Elkins.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing this forward. I am supportive of this rule. I mean, it is certainly the case that in the end, what folks were asking us to consider in that particular instance was something we were sympathetic to. Indeed, we were working on the resolutions that we then passed, and I do have concerns that in this day and age that it might be, it's a public meeting. If the precedent gets set that our business can be shut down, I mean, maybe it was folks that we were ultimately sympathetic to and working on, something, but it could be people wanting to ban books. It could be people who are, protesting our policies around LGBTQ and transgender rights in school and how we treat our students. So it's and we have to let everybody talk within public comment, but it's a really difficult precedent to not have a plan for getting our work done and our business done if something comes up. So certainly not anything about the particular issue that gave rise to this, but it is the circumstances certainly illuminated the fact that we in this day and age it could be a difficult situation. I had something else I was going to say, but it left me, so I guess I don't need to say it.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Does it have any language that says something about how this can only be used in a situation where we actually have a hard deadline or something like that? Because I really worry about this being overused as a way to run away from the public and not let them. I don't think it's a dangerous precedent for them to be able to shut down our meetings. I think that's a very American precedent, and if they want to be able to do that from time to time. I don't love the idea of exercising this kind of retreating and continuing our business and locking them out if it's not absolutely necessary. I do recognize that sometimes we have budget deadlines and the like that we've got to get through that day. Otherwise, that's not good for the people either, right? But I don't want to overuse this.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't, it does have to be a disruption, disturbance, or other interruption that materially interferes with the continuing the in-person portion. It does not have to be, it doesn't say anything about the business that we then do. That would be the judgment of the council at that point, because it's always a judgment call. Yeah. And, we have processes, as you're well aware, where we can delay things that we feel the need to delay.
Yeah, I guess I'll just explain that I don't have it in me to come up with an amendment tonight. It's just really beyond. And are we voting on this tonight?
Yeah, it's one.
So I'll probably just be a no vote. It sounds like it's going to pass. I'm not satisfied with it in its present form for the reasons previously stated. Thanks.
Well, you're very welcome to bring any revision to the rules at any point. So this will last until another one's passed. So if you have a suggestion to change, by all means, introduce it. Oops, I have to keep an eye on Councilor Labarge. All right. Any other discussion, or we would be looking for a motion to approve as well?
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, because of the delay, I'm going to give that second to Councilor Labarge. It's not fair. So motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Labarge to approve this rule change. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
No.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
and Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 8-1. And if the mayor and Alan Wolf start making a huge disruption, now we can just go and Zoom on Zoom. So keep it in line, you two.
Council President Jared, could I ask a question?
Yep.
So I have the paint stewardship legislation. Thomas Irwin is online waiting to answer questions for us. Would it be possible to move that up in the agenda just to honor his time?
Sure. Unless there are any objections?
Do you want to finish the, where are we?
We're in the orders. We have an order to cancel, but that's, yeah, that's, so, let's see. I actually will need to recuse myself for this.
Oh, right.
So let me read my recusal note, and Councillor Maori will preside. Okay, yeah, so this is a 24.054, a resolution in support of paint stewardship legislation. So my business sometimes hauls waste paint, and I'll be recusing myself to avoid a potential conflict of interest.
Yeah, so we have the resolution, the process note saying that 2 readings are respectfully requested to allow the resolution to be hand-delivered to the Ways and Means Committee in time for its consideration for the week of April 22nd. So let's maybe first hear from the sponsors.
Thomas Irwin has been going to different towns and cities around Massachusetts to about this legislation, and I think it'd be something really great for our town. It allows us to, by spending 75 cents to $1, whatever's decided, on each can of paint, we'd be able to then return unused paint to stores like Sherwin-Williams, not Home Depot or Lowe's, but the smaller stores will take the paint back. No questions asked. The paint just has to be liquid, and it could be paint that you have in your basement or garage, which I know we have lots of it taking up space. And the paint is recycled, and oil paint and water-based paint are both recycled separately and able to be used to make other paint with. I think I have a lot of that, Mr. Irwin.
I want to thank Deborah. She's really pushed this along. She took an interest in it, and I have to say this spoke. Just today and this weekend, I was hacking away at something at my house with my projects, and indeed I also have a basement full of paint. But that being said, this is, I think, a great example of a very doable thing that has really tangible benefits in terms of sustainability and the environment, and has been really shepherded by folks like Tom, and so I think it's a no-brainer to support it and to offer this measure of support. Our legislators tell us all the time that this is the kind of thing that is meaningful to be able to say towns are adopting this and support this law and are ready to do their part and put it in place. So I was very happy to sign on with Deb, with Councilor Clemmer, to bring this forward, and appreciate the advocacy of the folks statewide who are working on it. And so, and if I can just speak to briefly the second reading is because they are, as some of us who have had the opportunity to testify and on bills or things that we have, resolutions that we sponsored, they're coming up against some committee meetings and considerations that they let us know it'd be helpful to have this in their packet to put forward to the House. The Ways and Means? I forget which committee it is, but
Means,
yeah. So happy to support this.
I was going to add one thing.
please add.
And other states are doing it. Connecticut and Vermont are also have this in place now, so it's a method that's used in other states and works.
Do the sponsors want to read it, or have Laura show it, or how are you feeling? It's the sponsor's choice. Laura, Laura, could you, are you able to screen share that? I'm not able to. We could just look at it while we discuss it. Well, so sponsors, we have, who do we have here tonight? You said,
Thomas Irwin is the gentleman who's been going all over the state.
Right,
to
okay.
get this passed. And,
Yeah.
so if he's here to answer questions if anybody has any other questions that more technical that we can't answer.
So, so counselors, if you have any comments or questions for either the sponsors or for Tom, let me see, I think Laura's got this up.
Thank you, Tom, for sticking around tonight and for being so persistent about this and for all the work you've done.
I need to find him so I can unmute him. Hold on. There he is, yep. Okay. So, yeah, counselors?
Can we recognize Mr. Irwin in case anybody has any questions?
Yes. I don't know that we have to vote to recognize him. I think, do you think I should? Oh, okay. Because usually if someone's here to, anyway, okay, let's move to recognize Tom Irwin. Laura?
Is there a motion on the floor?
Well, we were going to recognize Tom Irwin, who's here to speak to the resolution.
And I'd second that.
Sorry, who was the motion maker?
I think it was Councilor Maori in the end.
And it's Councilor
Debbie
Elkins
nodded.
seconding?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Rothenberg?
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs?
Yes.
Councilor Elkins?
Yes.
Councilor Labarge?
Yes.
Councilor Maori?
Yes.
Councilor Moulton?
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer?
Yes.
And Councilor Perry?
Yes.
Okay, so recognized. So now Tom can answer questions freely. So do counselors have any comments or questions?
No.
How are you doing tonight, sir?
Let me see. Wait, now we have.
We'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Never know.
There he is. Okay, Tom, you should be unmuted,
Very
Tom.
good. I'm here.
Thank you for coming. I wish you luck. I know you've been going around to many cities, and I'm so happy that some of our great counselors were able to help you with this and that is here tonight. Good luck.
I'm very excited to be able to work with you folks. It's been a joy.
Okay.
Councilor Maori?
Yes.
Just real quick, Mr. Irwin, if you have anything you would just like to add, briefly, it doesn't sound like anybody has really much in the way of questions because you've been out a couple of times to talk to us about this and give us information, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, I'm sure we'd be happy to hear that briefly.
Great. Just a couple of points. It's actually in this law is already present in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont, and New York. We're kind of the last ones to the party. The other thing that I think brings people a lot of comfort is to know that this process is entirely voluntary. If a store thinks it's going to be a great idea, joins on, and then finds, wow, this is just not working for me, they can quit at any time they want. The other thing that I think brings people a lot of comfort is this is truly a nonprofit operation. So in Connecticut, where the law has been present since 2013, the price per can of paint has not changed from 75 cents. It is 75 cents a gallon now, as it was 10 years ago. And I think that's further evidence, even in a period of significant inflation, where the price has not gone up, that this is indeed a nonprofit thing. And
A slight correction, the oil-based paint generally gets used as a co-fuel in cement plants. And they pick them very specifically. They have particulate filters and scrubbers and so forth so that there's no pollution to be worried about. But it is burned and used in the process of making cement. It is possible to reblend it, but that's a small operation in Ontario that does that, and they have not grown large enough yet to handle all that we can send them. But that's currently the status. I think the other thing that's extremely important is this is an extremely well put together law in that manufacturers, retailers, consumer groups, and state agencies all sat down for a period of 5 years to develop it. So and didn't stop until all parties were basically content that it was a fair separation of responsibility and costs and so forth. And it's been recognized as probably the best cooperative EPR law that's out there. And I think it's going to be an important model as we go forward with other waste stream elements like mattresses and solar panels and lithium car batteries and so on, packaging, that we have a model of what really is the optimum, and it'll give us a goal to adhere to. And it's going to be important in order to be able to get rid of all the waste that we have to reduce to save lots of money is what we're going to end up doing.
You have a question? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. So the equipment where the paint gets recycled, is that going to be in one centralized, in the other states, is it in one centralized location? Or are there different
There are multiple
throughout?
places that latex can be reblended at. New York uses green sheen out of Amsterdam, New York. We have Recolor that's located in Hanover, Massachusetts. Connecticut and Rhode Island use Clean Harbors, and they haul it to Virginia to do their reprocessing. So there are a variety of companies that participate in this on a major scale. Imagine that there's going to be other companies that are on the West Coast that help out California and Washington, because there are a total of 11 states and the District of Columbia that are participants.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councilor.
If you could, in just a few words, sort of briefly, because we've been here a long time tonight due to me asking too many questions in some earlier things and arguing too much. How did you get into this? You're very dedicated to it.
Well, I was part of the Waste Management Recycling Committee in Dalton, and we were being killed with the hauling and tipping fees. We were running like $40,000 in the red. And we were trying to figure out how we're going to get out from underneath this. And in addition to charging on the people dropping things off more, I was looking for ways to decrease the volume flow. So I did some research and discovered paint care, and did a little bit more research to figure whether this was really as good as it sounded. And it turned out that it was. And I recognized, unfortunately, that there was no way to do it for Dalton alone unless I did it for the entire state. And I'm retired, so I have the opportunity to dedicate a lot of time to it, and I did.
Thank you.
It's good use of your retirement. Good work.
Okay. Sure. So the sponsors are asking for suspension of rules.
Move to suspend the rules.
Okay, suspend the rules. Second it.
Second, so motion made by Councillor Elkins, seconded by Councillor Labarge. Any discussion? Okay. On any discussion on suspension of the rules? No. Okay, so then looking for another motion, entertaining a motion.
I think we have to vote.
We got to vote.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, let's vote on the suspension, and then, so Laura?
Roll call. Okay. Councillor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yeah, yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
and Councillor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second?
Wait. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right? Yeah, I know, I didn't see her. I was just going to say that that passed, but that's okay. Do we have a second, though? Okay. Second by Councillor Elkins. Laura, roll call on, on approval of a resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Rothenberg.
Yes.
And Councillor Dobbs.
Yes.
Okay. That passes. And thank you very much to the sponsors and to Tom for your time.
My pleasure, and thank you for your support.
And yes, and welcome back.
Okay, hi everyone. We just have a few more things left. And we are back in order to 24.046, in order to cancel the April 18th, 2024 council meeting. So this just amends our schedule, regular meeting schedule, and crosses out April 18th, 2024. Councilor Maori and I are introducing this as we will both have prior plans to be away that week. And I checked with councilors, with the mayor's office, to see if there's anything urgent that couldn't wait for a second reading on May 2nd, and there wasn't anything. So if that is still the case, I know we do have a resolution that was delayed. But if we feel that it was delayed to the next regular meeting. So if we didn't cancel this, it would show up at our April 18th meeting. If we do cancel it, it shows up as our May 2nd meeting. So we do need to decide if we're okay with that resolution being delayed until May as part of this. Councilor Elkins.
Just a question, and Charlene has left, so maybe the mayor, maybe you. But we passed the financial orders, so the resolution now is not time sensitive, so.
Right, it is aspirational advisory.
Okay.
Then I would move to approve.
Second.
A motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Perry. Councilor Labarge.
No, I was gonna make a motion, that's fine.
Okay. Any other discussion on canceling the April 18th meeting, which is during school vacation week? Seeing none, roll call please. Laura?
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councillor Dobbs.
Yes.
And Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
All right, that meeting has been canceled. We move to ordinances. 24.045, an ordinance relative to parking areas reserved for municipal use. And was there anyone here to speak to this? I know this came from Transportation and Parking Commission, where it received a positive recommendation. Councilor Clemmer and I were at that meeting, and I can speak to it if there isn't another person to speak to it. Councilor Elkins? Okay. I'll just bring it up. So there are 2 parking spaces in the Gare parking garage that have been already used for parking enforcement, but the ordinance does not reflect that. So this brings that into compliance. And on the agenda, there's a photo that shows the 2 spots that are have been reserved, but this makes it legitimately reserved. Was that Councilor Clemmer? Is that your understanding too? What?
Yeah, was it for the 2 spots with, for electric vehicles? There?
It's not, it's not
Or did I
specific to
misunderstand that?
electric vehicles. It's it's reserved for the use of parking enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, that's how I understood it.
And this will be, since this is an ordinance, this will be a referral.
Move to refer to legislative matters.
Oh, great, your mic wasn't on.
Move to refer to legislative matters.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Maori to refer to legislative matters, which would be on April 11th at 6:30 p.m. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
And Councilor Jarrett.
Yes. So that passes unanimously and will be taken up by legislative matters. So our last item is 24.030, a resolution in support of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, transition plan in Northampton. And would the sponsors like to speak any further to the resolution? Councilor Dobbs.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Councilor Maori and Councilor Rothenberg for helping me with this resolution. And just wanted to mention that last time we talked about it, Councilor Jarrett, you had mentioned, or you had suggested 2 amendments to it, or not amendments, but there was a spelling error which I fixed. I just wanted to mention that I fixed that. And then also you had recommended to add the word "the City Council recommends." And I agree with that too, and I added that. And then I also just wanted to mention Christos Palamos, who is the author of the ADA transition plan. He suggested to me that we change just a little bit the last one, just to put the mayor's name first before the ADA coordinator, where it says send a copy of this resolution to. Just to put the mayor's name first, because the mayor is like the one that would be the leader of that implementation of the plan. You know what I mean? So, other than that, I think it's good the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Elkins. Your mic.
All of those things you just, except for the last thing, is already fixed in here?
Yes, yes.
Okay, then I would move to amend that language to move Mayor Chiara to the front of that list in the last, be it further resolved.
Second.
You need to do an amendment.
Second.
Yep. Okay, motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Rothenberg. So I don't see those changes reflected in what's on the agenda. Delaro, have you been sent?
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I made the changes on my own and didn't actually. It's not on the agenda yet, but I just, on the file itself, I made the corrections. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So we do, then we need to amend on the floor. We need to make all of those changes.
Okay.
In which case,
Yep.
I would amend my amendment. I would to include all of the revisions that Councilor Dobbs just mentioned.
Amended second.
Okay, revised. And so I just want to make sure we're clear about all of the changes, and that Laura especially is clear. So it's correcting the spelling of Narkowitz. It is, and if it's the language that I spoke last time, I can just speak it again. I have it here. Okay. Be it further resolved that as the city evolves amid substantive projects and department expansions, the council recommends that the ADA transition plan be periodically evaluated and amended to evolve in accordance with such changes. So that's the revised version. Laura, were you able to get that?
Is the only addition there the words "the council recommends" to what is already there? I didn't have it in front of me to read as you were.
Yep, so the changes are to add the words "council recommends" right before ADA transition plan, and then change "is" to "be"
Okay,
right after ADA transition plan.
got it.
And then Laura, did you get the last change to move?
Putting the mayor's name
Yep.
first, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this is on the floor with, as amended. No, we're voting on the motion was made with the amendments.
Right.
Or, so we're voting on it as amended.
Got it.
Is there, well, it's already on the floor, so if there's no further discussion. So because it was kind of a 2-in-1, right? Counselor Elkins moved it and said, with these changes, and then Counselor Rothenberg seconded that. Is that acceptable to do it that way, Laura?
Yes,
Okay.
I will so make it.
Be it resolved.
Yes. So seeing no further comments, Counselor
No,
Labarge?
there's a comment. We're just so happy. We're so excited.
Yeah.
Way to go, Jeremy. Thank you for bringing this back to our attention.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
And, thanks to all who developed the plan. I want to thank the mayor's office and everyone in the executive branch who is working to implement the plan. And every time they have a new project, they're making sure that it's in compliance with that plan and moving forward. So, and thank you all for raising our awareness. Until Jeremy brought the idea of talked to me about the plan a couple months ago in general, I wasn't aware of it. So I'm really glad to know about it. Okay, roll call, please, on approval.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg,
Yes.
Counselor Dobbs,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Congratulations. I believe that's everything, right? We haven't missed anything?
No, that's everything.
Okay, looking for a motion to
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Rothenberg, seconded by Counselor Perry. Roll call on adjournment, please.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
And Counselor Maori.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Laura.
Good night,
Everyone, and
Laura.
see you
Thanks.
at
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
6